Discover the incredible journey of a single dad in 12F. His touching signal changed everything. Ethan was a single dad at 12F, the humble little house cloaked in the vibrant colors of blooming flowers in Willow Creek. Each day, he pulled on his grease-stained coveralls, working his magic as a mechanic in a rickety garage. By night, the sweet aroma of homemade lasagna wafted through their small kitchen as he twirled around with Mia, his radiant 10-year-old daughter. Her laughter, bright as the sun, filled every corner, creating a comforting warmth that fought against the chill of their financial struggles. But the reality loomed large. Every penny mattered, and each day felt like a ticking clock. One evening, as they prepared dinner, Mia's eyes sparkled when she announced her school's charity event to support underprivileged families. Ethan's heart twisted with conflicting emotions. A rush of pride ignited in him, but it was quickly engulfed by the fear swirling in his gut. How could he explain to Mia that though their home overflowed with love, the bank account told a different story? The thought of exposure terrified him. He sighed, cutting the pasta with a little more force than necessary. The event buzzed around town, but whispers fluttered like moths in the air about Tim, their affluent neighbor. Polished car, flashy reputation, he was the poster boy for privilege. There were rumors he was simply leveraging this occasion to boost his own image. It hurt Ethan deep in his core. He was a mechanic, yes, but his heart harbored more knowledge of kindness than most of those who walked the neighborhood in tailored suits. As the days marched towards the gala, Ethan tried to rally support, urging their neighbors to lend a hand. But he was met with dismissive glances and polite refusals. Just a mechanic, what does he know? Echoed hauntingly in his mind, curling his fists in frustration. Each rejection felt like a weight on his spirit. Just when he thought hope had dimmed, the sound of metal clanging in the garage struck a spark. At the charity gala, the atmosphere crackled with tension. Ethan took a deep breath. As he stepped up to the podium, he felt the scrutiny of the entire room. He could feel Mia's bright eyes boring into him, a mix of pride and fear reflected back. He challenged Tim's polished facade, exposing the uncomfortable truth lurking behind charity smiles and well-manicured lawns. Look beyond the glitter. He shouted, his voice rising above the gasps of disbelief. Do we applaud the wealthy who throw a dime to the needy, or do we stand for something deeper? The guests murmured, their expressions shifting as if Ethan's words were turning cogs in their churned minds. Mia's heart raced with pride, but Ethan trembled, knowing he stood at the edge of something transformative yet terrifying. Would his honesty pierce through the veil of status, or would his cries be drowned by the siren call of wealth? Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. As he stepped away from the podium, shifting the silence to the crowd's murmurings, hope flickered in Mia's eyes. But doubt coiled tightly around Ethan's heart. Can his moment of courage inspire change, or would it fade like whispers on the wind? The outcome hung in the air, each breath pregnant with anticipation, leaving not just the community, but also Ethan himself, on the edge of transformation. Ethan could feel the energy shift in the room, that strange alchemy of hope and anxiety swirling around him. Did he dare to believe that his words had cracked the facade? He scanned the faces before him. Some looked shocked, others intrigued. A few whispered to one another, perhaps reconsidering their views in that very moment. Mia's eyes sparkled with something he hadn't seen in a while. Understanding. As the gala continued, Tim's confident demeanor wavered for the first time. Frustrated murmurs buzzed like bees within the crowd. What is he talking about? One guest whispered, their tone sharp. He's just a mechanic. What does he know about generosity? But with each comment, Ethan felt a glimmer of resilience rise within him. Perhaps, just perhaps, he was starting to crack their false glamour. He exchanged glances with Mia, her small face full of unyielding trust and pride. Suddenly, she was his anchor, reminding him why he was here to fight for a better future, not just for them, but for those who were often overlooked. With renewed strength, Ethan stepped back up beside the podium, drawing in another deep breath before speaking out again. "It's not about having riches or titles," he urged, his voice powerful and steady. "It's about time and compassion, about looking your neighbor in the eye and saying, 'I see you. I will lift you up.'" Slowly, heads began to nod. Ethan saw a woman shift closer, eyes glistening with emotion. Another guest, an older gentleman with deep lines etched in his face, leaned forward, clearly impacted by Ethan's raw honesty. Ethan's heart raced. Was it really happening? The gala shifted. Conversation started buzzing more loudly, people trading stories of struggle and generosity alike. Tim stood at a distance, brow furrowed and searching for a retort, but Ethan's voice had composed a new narrative, one where empathy triumphed over pretense. As the event continued, Mia squeezed her father's hand tightly, her infectious spirit reigniting a warmth that filled the room. She beamed up at him. "You did it, Dad!" she exclaimed, filled with uncontainable excitement, but with bitter sweetness. Ethan couldn't shake the fear that gripped him tight. Would they remember it tomorrow? Would change spring forth from tonight's shared honesty, or would they slip back into their comfortable ignorance? As the night wrapped up with heartfelt discussions and promises to do better, Ethan felt the ripple effect starting to take shape. They might not have all the answers yet, but they were beginning to ask the right questions. As they drove home, Mia's chatter filled the car, mixing innocent enthusiasm with hope. But Ethan felt a weight settling on his shoulders. He had sparked a conversation, but what if it was simply a fleeting moment? What if the goodwill of that night disappeared with the dawn? Arriving home, he watched as Mia bounced out of the car, dancing towards the door. "You should do that again, Dad. You were amazing." She spun around, her light pulling him into her joy, yet, deep down, he wrestled with doubt. Could he maintain this momentum? Just as he closed the door, a soft knock startled them. Glancing through the window, Ethan's heart sank. It was Tim, standing on their porch, the very picture of conflicted emotion. What could he possibly want now? Ethan hesitated at the door, uncertainty wrapping around him like a thick fog. Mia, still buzzing from the gala, skipped ahead to the living room, oblivious to the tension brewing outside. He took a deep breath, steadying himself before opening the door to Tim, who stood silhouetted against the porch light, shadows dancing across his uncertain face. "What do you want, Tim?" Ethan asked, trying to keep his tone steady. Tim shifted uncomfortably. "Can we talk?" The words spilled out reluctantly, heavy with something deeper than mere irritation. Ethan eyed him, waiting, but Tim seemed to struggle with what to say. After a moment, Ethan stepped back, allowing him inside. As soon as the door closed behind them, the warmth of their home and the comfort of its familiarity enveloped them. I don't know how to say this," Tim began, his voice wavering. "What you said at the gala, it struck a chord." Ethan raised a brow, surprised. "Really? You didn't seem interested in listening." Tim looked down, rubbing the back of his neck. "Yeah, well. I've been avoiding this for a while." He took a step forward, his posture shifting from defensive to open. "You were right. About time and compassion. I guess I've been so caught up in my world of accomplishments, I forgot what it really meant to connect. To care." Ethan felt a flicker of hope, a small flame amid the storm in his heart. "And?" Tim swallowed hard, his eyes lifting to meet Ethan's with a newfound vulnerability. "I want to help. I want to do better. But I don't know how to start." The boldness of his admission took Ethan aback. This was the Tim he never thought he'd see. "Why now?" he asked. "What made you change your mind?" "I don't know, man. Watching you today, it made me realize how much I've been blinded by my own success. You were out there fighting for something real, Tim said, emotion threading through his voice. I just sat back, thinking I was doing good from the sidelines. Ethan listened, allowing Tim's honesty to sink in. Maybe this was a moment of connection that could bridge their differences. It's not about one speech or one night. It's about a commitment to change. A daily effort. Tim nodded slowly. I want in, Ethan. I want to make a difference, too. Can you help me? Before he could reply, Mia peeked around the corner. Curiosity etched on her face, she crossed her arms. What's happening? Ethan exchanged glances with Tim, who appeared lost for words. Just talking a little, Ethan said. Mia's expression softened, and she stepped further into the light. Did you tell him about the people without homes? The ones you said we could help? Tim's eyes lit up with surprise and admiration for this little girl who so effortlessly spoke what the adults struggled to say. Ethan smiled, warmth creeping into his chest. She's right, Tim. Those stories need to be heard. For the first time that evening, Tim's expression shifted from confusion to realization. I'd like to hear them. They sound important. As Mia chimed in with a burst of excitement, sharing snippets and stories of hope, Ethan couldn't help but feel a swell of gratitude. The spark he'd ignited was spreading, and it felt like the beginning of something bigger, but in the back of his mind, a question lingered. Would this newfound connection be strong enough to last? Just as Mia finished, the doorbell rang again, pulling Ethan from his thoughts. He exchanged glances with Tim. Who else could it be? Tim asked, a hint of trepidation in his voice. Ethan shrugged, his heart racing again. Let us find out. Without a word, they moved toward the door, the weight of the unknown thickening around them. What awaited them on the other side might just redefine their journey yet again. Ethan reached for the doorknob, his palms slightly sweaty. Tim stood beside him, the tension palpable. It was strange, this moment. Just hours before, they were barely on speaking terms at the gala, and now this fragile alliance was on the cusp of being tested again. With a deep breath, he opened the door. Standing there was a young woman with a familiar face, albeit worn by the seasons of struggle. It was Rebecca, a former colleague from the social services unit. Her eyes met Ethan's, filled with urgency and something deeper, an invitation to remember their shared past. Ethan, she said, almost breathless. The situation at the shelter is worse than we thought. We really need help. Tim shifted uncomfortably next to Ethan, catching the flicker of recognition as Rebecca's eyes darted to him. Tim, right? She asked, surprise mingling with apprehension. What are you doing here? Ethan felt the energy shift, like an electric charge zipping through the air. It's a long story, he said, trying to maintain tension while inviting Rebecca in. What happened? They're trying to shut us down. The funding got cut again, and I just don't know how much longer we can stay open without support. It's bad, Ethan. Her voice cracked, the gravity of her words sinking in deeper. We could lose the families who rely on us. As she spoke, Ethan's heart sank. It was easy to forget the world outside his day-to-day life when surrounded by comforts. But there it was, a stark reminder of what he had been advocating for, and now it stood before him, raw and real. Is there a way to fix this? Tim chimed in, unexpectedly. His voice was steady, unlike the hesitant tone earlier. He seemed to have found a new purpose. Rebecca looked at him, skeptical yet intrigued. We need resources, a fundraiser, volunteers. It would take a lot of effort. Then we can do it, Tim said, surprising even himself. I mean, Ethan and I. We can help organize everything. Count me in. Ethan turned to Tim, astonished. I can't just sit back anymore. Tim's gaze held Ethan's. There was conviction there, a determination that brought a spark of hope to Ethan's heart. Mia, standing just behind Ethan, was watching this play out with wide-eyed curiosity. "What can we do to help?" she piped up, her small stature radiating an immense energy. "I can get my friends to donate. We can bake cookies and sell them." The scene hung there for a moment, each person absorbing the weight of the challenge ahead. It felt monumental, yet the energy in the room promised possibility. Rebecca smiled for the first time, hope flickering in her tired eyes. "That would be incredible, Mia. Every bit counts." Just when it seemed everything was falling into place, Ethan's phone buzzed on the table, cutting through the moment. He picked it up, glancing at the screen, and his heart dropped. It was a text from the board of directors at his job. An emergency meeting notification. They were calling him back immediately, and their timing couldn't have been worse. He felt an onrush of frustration and fear. "I have to go." "I might be." "Don't." Tim's voice was firm, cutting through Ethan's anxious thoughts. "You can't dive back into your job and leave this behind. This is important." Ethan's hands trembled slightly as he looked back at Rebecca and Mia. They needed him now. "Maybe you should go," Rebecca suggested, though there was a hint of doubt in her tone. "But I think we can move forward without you. We have to fight for this." The warmth of their conversation began to chill in contrast with the urgency of the text. Ethan felt torn. Should he stay or go? What would that choice mean for everything they were building together? He stared out into the night, the weight of the world suddenly pressing down on him. "Wait," he said, his mind racing with possibilities. "Maybe I can actually do both." The room held its breath, and he realized this was more than a moment of decision. It was a crossroads. Everything was shifting beneath him, and he had to choose which path would lead them forward, but just as he thought he had clarity, another knock echoed through the house, startling them all. "Who now?" Tim exclaimed, the tension beginning to mount once again. Ethan took a step towards the door, heart pounding. He had a feeling that whatever he opened that door to next would change everything yet again. Ethan reached for the doorknob, his heart racing as he swung the door open. The figure standing in the doorway caught him off guard. It was Derek, the shelter's marketing coordinator, looking disheveled and frantic. "Ethan, I didn't know you were here," Derek said, his voice tinged with urgency. "I was trying to reach everyone. They've just announced the cuts to the funding, and we need to get on this now." Ethan's world tilted, and everything around him dulled. "What does this mean?" he asked, fearing the answer. "It means we have to mobilize. Fast. We need to reach out to the community, gather support, anything we can do to keep this place open," Derek replied, his eyes darting to Rebecca and then Tim. "This isn't just about us anymore. It's families relying on us." As the weight of Derek's words sunk in, Ethan realized he was not alone in this fight. There were more than just three of them now. There was a network: friends, colleagues, and shared struggles. "Did you get the grant applications out?" Rebecca asked, her tone shifting, knitting brows in determination. "No," Derek rapped out, shaking his head. "But if we push together, we can write a compelling proposal. I know the board, and we need to tell our story. Make them feel it." "Then let us make them feel it," Ethan said, his resolve deepening. He sensed the momentum building around them, like a fuse igniting a greater fire. "Okay then, Mia," Tim started, turning toward the young girl, "you're going to be our heart. We need your idea of those cookies. People will buy them, but we need them in bulk." Mia's smile radiated warmth, unfazed by the impending chaos that surrounded her. "I can do that. I'll get my mom to help, and we can decorate them. We'll make signs, too, like 'Save Our Shelter.'" Gleeful laughter followed her excitement, cutting through the tension like sunlight chasing away clouds. "I'll reach out to our contacts in the community," Derek decided, his voice stronger now. "If we can convene a meeting, then we can map things out together." Ethan felt a flicker of hope, battling the reality of his impending meeting. He needed to be here to fight with them. Tim, he called, gathering his thoughts, you've got some marketing skills, right? Can you draft something for social media? We need people to see just how important this is. Absolutely, Tim replied, enthusiasm pouring out of him. I'll also find volunteers who can help with logistics. This isn't just about us, we can make our neighbors care. There was a moment of shared energy, their task crystallizing into something real. Each member of their small team was stepping into action, flames of purpose igniting where just moments before there was doubt, but underneath the bubbling excitement, Ethan still felt the unsettling weight of his phone buzzing incessantly in his pocket. The board's call wasn't just a distraction, it was a glaring withdrawal from what he was meant to fight for right now. And the conflict within him was reaching a breaking point. Guys, Ethan said, breath hitching slightly, I know this is a lot, but I still have a job. They're waiting for me if I leave now, Ethan. Tim interrupted firmly, stepping closer, you have to decide. Do you want to be a part of this fight or something that's draining your soul? The pressure of his decision loomed larger than ever. Outside, thunder rumbled like a distant warning, shadows shifting within. And just like that, another knock at the door echoed through the house, leaving everyone on edge yet again. Who now? Rebecca sighed, but Ethan's heart leapt. He had a feeling this next visitor would change everything they thought they knew. Deep down, he felt that perhaps this time, he would find clarity. What awaited him beyond that door could redefine everything. Ethan's breath caught in his throat as he glanced between his friends. Derek stood rigid, eyes wide like a deer in headlights, while Mia bounced on her toes, curiosity overcoming her innocence. Rebecca crossed her arms, looking firmly at the door as if it held the answers they desperately sought. Should we open it? Tim broke the silence. There was urgency in his voice, an excitement that ran under layers of anxiety. Yeah, let us see who it is, Ethan gestured, taking a bold step toward the door. He needed to know what this visitor could reveal. Could it be a potential ally? Maybe even someone who had influence to help their cause? With a deep breath, he turned the knob slowly and opened the door. A tall woman stood before him, rain drenching her coat and cascading down her brown hair. Her eyes were sharp and bright, filled with a stirring mixture of determination and desperation. It was Sarah, a local community organizer he had met months ago at a charity event. Ethan! She exclaimed, her voice rising above the soft patter of rain. I heard the news about the cuts. I came as soon as I could. Ethan felt a rush of relief. Sarah, thank goodness you're here. We need every hand we can get. Exactly. I've been working with several other community groups. If we combine our efforts, we can make a much bigger impact, she said, brushing the rain off her coat as she crossed the threshold. We need to rally people, create a campaign. We can start a petition too. Tim stepped forward, his enthusiasm bubbling. That's a fantastic idea. With your connections, we could reach families who'd be willing to share their stories. Yes, Sarah nodded vigorously, her expression igniting with hope. And we can create events around personal testimonies of how this shelter has changed lives. It's about making it real to the decision makers. When they see the faces and hear the voices behind the numbers, they can't ignore us. As they brainstormed together, Ethan felt the earlier tremors of doubt and conflict begin to ease. Sarah's presence breathed new energy into the room, shifting the dynamics. Ideas flowed effortlessly, voices overlapping with excitement. Rebecca chimed in, suggesting community workshops, while Mia offered to bake her famous cookies for a fundraising event. We should also think about social media, Ethan interjected. We can share snippets of the stories in a powerful way. Give it a personal touch that connects with people's hearts. Yes. And we can use hashtags, like Save Our Shelter, Mia added, her eyes shining with the joy of involvement. An overwhelming sense of teamwork washed over Ethan. Unlike the sterile boardroom where he typically found himself, here they were forging connections, fighting for a cause greater than themselves. But just as the mood lifted, a crack of thunder rolled ominously outside. The storm outside mirrored the turmoil in Ethan's heart. A flicker of doubt sent shivers through him. Could they genuinely make a difference, or was this merely a futile effort against looming bureaucracy? As laughter erupted from their plans, Ethan's phone buzzed again, this time vibrating wildly in his pocket. It felt like an interloper at a gathering of friends. The board wanted answers, and he was torn in two directions. He glanced at Sarah, her unwavering focus on their plans, and a wave of resolve washed over him. He had a choice to make. Guys, he hesitated, his voice steadying, what if this leads to something bigger than we imagined? What if we could not only save the shelter, but turn it into a beacon for the community? The storm raged outside, nature in turmoil just as he was inside. But with every heartbeat, he felt the very foundations of his spirit awakening. As they circled up, huddled with purpose, the next crack of thunder rolled in fierce competition with Ethan's internal doubts, and just as they began to feel the spark of unity, the power went out, plunging them into darkness. Wait! What just happened? Derek exclaimed, stretching out his hands into the void. They were plunged into silence, and the cacophony of the storm clashed with their rising hopes. In the darkness, uncertainty loomed, but the flicker of determination held steady in their hearts. Ethan felt something shift. This wasn't just a fight for survival now, it was a surge toward something transformational. And in that moment of stillness, he realized that clarity could emerge from the storm. What awaited them when the lights returned could change everything they believed possible. The room was still, wrapped in darkness, as the storm raged outside. Ethan could barely see the shapes of his friends, all struggling to make sense of their surroundings. He could feel the tension, the rising fear that nipped at their heels. "Stay calm," he urged, his voice steady. "We can figure this out." Mia's voice broke through the silence. "What if we can't? What if this is it?" "Don't say that," Tim shot back. "We've come too far to give up now." His voice vibrated with a mix of resolve and the tremor of fear. Ethan squeezed his eyes shut and tried to push through the panic that threatened to engulf him. "Look, maybe this is a sign. We need to be the light in this darkness," he said firmly. His heart raced, but he was determined to keep them focused. "Let us just use our voices. We can still talk about our plans." "Good idea," Rebecca said, her tone calming like a gentle breeze. Ethan could hear her taking a deep breath. "Let us keep this energy going. We need to create a plan, even if we don't have a board to write it on." Emboldened by Rebecca's words, Ethan gestured as though he could outline their roadmap in midair. "Okay. Sarah, why don't you start by sharing more about your community ties? Mia, maybe you can talk about your ideas for the bakery event?" As they resumed their brainstorming session in the pitch-black room, the storm rumbled like a distant giant. Their voices formed a web of soft sounds, lifting the weight of despair. But amidst the collaboration, the shivering gusts howled louder, as if mocking their determination. Suddenly, a flash of lightning illuminated the room. Ethan caught a glimpse of his friends' faces, each one etched with a blend of fear and fierce hope. When the darkness returned, he was pulled back into the moment, a relentless reminder of the battle they faced. Yet, there was also something electric in the air, a sense of solidarity. "Let us remember why we're doing this," Ethan said, his voice strong. "It's not just about the shelter. It's about the families who depend on it. If we don't fight now, who will?" Tension shifted into a collective resolve. In the shadowy silence, one by one, they shared stories of individuals they knew who had benefited from the shelter. Each story became a beacon of light cutting through the gloom. Ethan felt the fire ignite within him, stronger than before. "Okay, what's next?" he asked when the stories had run their course. "We need to stay on this path, even if we can't see the way forward." Sarah mentioned connecting with other groups, Tim replied, his enthusiasm bubbling again. "Let us use what we have now to reach out. We can write emails and post on social media. Yes. Mia clapped her hands together. We can type them out on our phones, and once the lights come back, we can send them all at once. The sound of a rumble came from the outside, but it felt less threatening now. It was as if the storm had become background music to their newfound momentum. Ethan's phone buzzed once again, and he yanked it out of his pocket with a newfound determination. Okay, let us do this. We don't need the power to light up our purpose. We have each other. In a rush, fingers danced over screens. Lit by the flickering glow of their phones, ideas became tangible. The darkness that had first felt so pressing now encouraged them to push harder, louder. Just then, a sudden pop echoed in the silence, and a moment later, the power surged back to life, bathing the space in bright light. It was overwhelming after the dark. Cheers erupted, and laughter echoed off the walls. But as Ethan looked at his friends, he felt a sudden jolt of reality. The fight wasn't over, but this was only the beginning. They were in this together, and their next steps would determine everything. What now? Rebecca asked, the weight of urgency not lost in her excitement. Ethan smiled, confidence renewed. Now, we plan our first public meeting. It's time to hit the ground running. But as he glanced at his phone one last time, another message blinked at him, a notification from the board he'd been avoiding. His heart sank. It was a demand. For an update. And inside him, a question loomed: did he have the courage to prioritize this rebellion over his responsibilities? The storm still raged outside, but a greater storm brewed within. Ethan took a deep breath, the bright lights around him a harsh reminder of the reality he faced. His friends were buzzing with excitement, planning their next moves as if the world outside didn't exist. Yet for Ethan, that single notification loomed heavily on his mind. It felt like a weight, pulling him down as the thrill of their success attempted to lift him up. Ethan? You all right? Mia asked, tilting her head slightly, noticing the frown etched on his face. Yeah, I need a moment, he replied, forcing a smile. He stepped away from the group, out of the immediate circle of their bustling energy. He checked his phone again, the message glaring at him like a neon sign. Need an update on the upcoming plans ASAP. The board is getting anxious. Ethan's stomach churned. Each ring of the board's expectations echoed in his mind. The weight of responsibility hung over him like an ominous cloud. The shelter had to succeed, but he couldn't shake the feeling that the board would stifle their plan before it could even take flight. Hey, Rebecca said, jogging over to him. What's really going on? He rubbed the back of his neck. It's just I got a message from the board. They want an update. It feels like we're juggling too many things. Let them wait, she said with a determined edge to her voice. This is our moment. We're building something that matters, Ethan. I know, but the words hung in the air, swimming in the uncertainty that filled his heart. What if they shut us down before we even get started? What if all this talking, all this planning, is for nothing? Rebecca stepped closer, her hand on his arm. We're not here to bend to their demands. We're fighting for families who need a voice. They need us. You need us. In that moment, Ethan looked around at the faces of his friends. He could see the hunger in their eyes, the determination that shone even brighter than the lights above. He felt a flicker of that same fire ignite within him, battling the shadows casting doubt in his mind. Okay, he breathed out slowly. You're right. We'll keep pushing forward. We'll show them what we can do. With resolve growing, Ethan returned to the group. All right, team. This meeting is going to be the starting point for everything. We're going to reach out to the community and make sure everyone knows about our plans. We'll channel every moment of this storm into something powerful. The room burst into electric chatter as everyone began pooling ideas about flyers, social media, and getting the word out to local news outlets. Laughter spilled over as jokes flew in the excitement of action, but beneath that zeal, Ethan's mind raced. What if this optimism crumbled? What if the board swung in with their demands, snuffing out the flame they ignited? As he watched his friends rally together, a flicker of doubt lurked in the corners of his thoughts. He pushed the idea away as best he could. "Let us have our first public meeting next week," he announced. "We'll have refreshments and presentations, and we'll make sure everyone feels welcome." Cheers erupted again, a wave of energy washing over them. Yet even among the thrill, there was a nagging question at the back of Ethan's mind: could they truly hold their ground against the looming corporate expectations? As they delved deeper into preparations, laughter and connection echoed through the space. But Ethan's heart remained heavy. What if this dream turned into a nightmare? With tension threading between hope and fear, Ethan stepped back to watch his friends. The world around them was alive. The storm may have raged outside, but this was more than a fight against the elements. It was a rebellion against the doubts within, the fears that would haunt his steps in the days ahead. But just as a new wave of excitement passed through the group, Ethan's phone buzzed again. Another text, this time from Sarah, a lead on potential sponsors. But would they embrace their vision, or would they be just another piece in the puzzle of corporate constraints? His heartbeat quickened, a mix of hope and trepidation flooding through him. As a new storm gathered on the horizon, one far more personal than the weather, Ethan couldn't help but wonder, what would happen when they finally faced the fear that loomed larger than anything outside? Ethan stared at his phone, the words blurring for a moment as anxiety surged through him. Potential sponsors, he thought. A chance to fuel their mission, to finally bring the shelter to life. His hands trembled slightly as he typed a response. "Hey, Sarah, can you fill me in on the details? We need to know what we're working with here." As he hit send, he felt a mix of anticipation and dread. Could they find a sponsor who genuinely cared? Or would they be drawn into the same corporate machinery that suffocated so many good intentions? Rebecca, sensing his tension, leaned closer, her brows furrowing. "What is going on?" "Sarah has a lead on sponsors," he said, keeping his voice low, as if afraid to speak too much hope into existence. "But what if they don't want to support our vision?" "Then we find someone who will," she replied, a fierce spark in her eyes. "We're not giving up." He admired her determination. It fueled his own to counter the doubts swirling inside him. As the planning session wound down, the group began to disperse. Ethan lingered, watching his friends chatter and laugh. They had a shared dream, a mission that ran deeper than just numbers or plans. They wanted to transform lives. And that was worth fighting for. His thoughts turned again to the board. Would they even understand the passionate energy in the room? They were used to cold metrics and bottom lines. Ethan shook his head, trying to dismiss the worry. "Hey, Ethan. You coming?" Mia's voice cut through his thoughts. "Yeah, just thinking," he replied, stealing a last glance at the bright lights reflecting off the tables piled high with flyers and snacks. "About what?" she pressed. "About how to make this work. And if we can." Mia's expression softened. "You're not in this alone. Remember that." A warm smile broke through his worries. "I know. I want to make sure we don't let anyone down." As they walked out together, the cool evening air wrapped around them, refreshing yet ripe with unease. Ethan glanced at the sky, the horizon painted with streaks of orange and purple. It reminded him that beauty could come after the storms. Maybe they could, too. "Let us meet up tomorrow," Mia suggested. "Go over the details for the public meeting? We can brainstorm ideas." "Yeah, that sounds good," he nodded. That night, as he lay in bed, the weight of the day settled on his chest. Images of their proposed shelter lingered in his mind: bright colors, laughter, community gatherings. He closed his eyes, willing himself to believe in that vision. But as sleep began to pull him under, his mind raced with unanswered questions. What if they faced rejection? What if the board crushed their dreams? The doubts crept in like shadows, creeping deeper. In the quiet of the night, Ethan's phone buzzed again. Half dazed, he reached for it. It was from Sarah again. "Ethan, you need to see this," she wrote. "I think this lead could change everything." Heart pounding, he sat up, the weight of possibility lifting the heaviness for just a moment. What if they were about to turn their dreams into reality? He took a deep breath and replied, "What is it?" But the night felt different now. As if a flicker of hope had dared to break through the relentless tide of fear. That single notification felt like a new beginning. Ethan found himself wondering what incredible twist might come next. Could this really be the turning point they had all been fighting for? Just when Ethan thought the chaos had eased, the door swung open, and a wave of light flooded in. The storm had finally passed, leaving behind a blanket of calm illuminated by a gentle morning sun. But despite the freshness of the day, Ethan felt the edges of uncertainty still nipping at him. Mia rushed past him, her small hands clutching flyers she had decorated with bright colors and bold letters for the shelter's public meeting. "Dad, look! Everyone is going to come. We just need to get the word out." Her enthusiasm rippled through him, softening the anxiety that had taken root overnight. "Absolutely. Let us reach out to everyone," he exclaimed, matching her excitement in a bid to uplift his spirits. As they began calling neighbors and friends, the phone felt heavier than ever, a lifeline in uncertain waters. Tim arrived shortly after, a spark in his eyes, got some local businesses on board for food donations. Everyone wants to help. Ethan's heart lifted slightly, bolstered by Tim's determination. As their little team came together at 12F, Sarah arrived, her footsteps firm and her spirit unwavering. "I spoke to a few community leaders. They want to see the impact you've made, Ethan. Let us make our voices heard." Ethan could feel the pulse of possibility thrumming in the air. But then, as Mia started brainstorming cookie flavor ideas, the weight of his phone suddenly pressed on him once again. Before he could think twice, he picked it up. It was Sarah again, her message brimming with urgency. "Ethan, this might just be our game changer." He scanned the message, his heart rate quickening. A local influencer was willing to spotlight their mission through a video. Instantly, the wheels in his mind began to turn. Wow, this could help us reach so many people in the community. Tim's eyes widened. That's huge. A personal touch makes it real. But then doubt crept back, the all-too-familiar nagging voice whispering in his head. What if it's not enough? Mia broke through the haze as she tugged at his sleeve. "You're going to tell our story, right? You'll show them how many families need the shelter." Her blue eyes sparkled, holding an innocent conviction that sparked a flicker of rebellion within him. Ethan inhaled deeply and squared his shoulders, feeling the love for his daughter pushing through the waves of doubt. "Yes. Yes, I will." The fear shivered but didn't break him. As the day wore on, they coordinated every detail: the flyers, the video details, the community outreach. A tangible hope filled their small house. As night fell, anticipation thrummed within the walls, echoing the kanji of excitement. When the day of the meeting finally arrived, the hall buzzed with energy. Ethan stood at the front of the room, his palms sweating but his heart swelling with pride. Mia waved enthusiastically at the families trickling in, while Tim rushed around, making sure everything was set. He turned to the microphone, feeling a surge of adrenaline. "Thank you all for coming. Today, we don't just gather to discuss a shelter, we unite to forge a community resilient enough to weather any storm." As he continued to speak, something flickered to life within him. No more fear, only determination. Together, they were putting a face to a crisis, telling stories that cut through walls like sunlit warmth. By the end of the meeting, laughter and conversations filled the room, laughter mixing with heartfelt stories of struggle and hope. They were creating more than just a campaign, they were building a family, a community that held each other up. And suddenly, a figure stepped forward from the shadows. It was Tim, once distant and unsure, now standing firmly beside him. "Ethan S. Wright. We need to act together. This shelter is just the beginning. The room erupted into applause that evening, as they began the plans to launch the collaboration with local businesses and the influencer's video. Ethan felt a shift happen. Yes, challenges awaited them, but for the first time, he felt a sense of belonging amongst his community. They shared a mission, creating a haven for families in need, each person bringing their own fire. As Ethan returned home, Mia slipped her little hand in his. "We did it, Dad. Everyone cares." The warmth of her words melted away the lingering shadows in his heart. "We sure did, Princess. We sure did." Standing at 12F that night, under the twinkling stars, surrounded by the ones he loved, Ethan allowed himself to dream once more. Not just of survival, but of thriving together with a community that he finally felt a part of. And as he looked at his daughter's delighted face, he whispered a simple hope into the evening breeze: "This is just the beginning." There was magic in the air, in the laughter, the solidarity, and the vision for change. And with that shared journey ahead, Ethan knew the fears that had clawed at him before paled in comparison to the brilliance of their collected spirit. This is the moment you need to see. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive stories of bravery, community, and hope. Leave a like now to let the algorithm serve this content to others ready for transformation. Comment your reactions and feelings about this inspiring conclusion, and don't wait not even one more second to share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation. Real fans understand the value of their support. Let's ignite that change together.